Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
You know, I will forever associate that 479 with Tom Butterfield because he always told the story that he thought it was amazing that that guy wrote a song about Bill because he said that it was, "Are you sowing the seed of the king, dumb brother?" So that forever is Tom's song in my mind. Our lesson for this evening is taken from Daniel chapter 4, continuing our series from this book. This book is going to become more and more relevant to us as we go through our study of the minor prophets in the mornings and on Wednesdays, because the time is just going to progress closer and closer to when we'll be seeing Daniel's story unfold. Chapter 4, in particular, is very little about Daniel. In fact, I think by name, Daniel shows up just once in the entire thing. This is another story about Nebuchadnezzar, and in some ways you could say that he's the second main character of this book after Daniel. King Nebuchadnezzar, to all the peoples, nations, and men, and every language who live in all the world, may you prosper greatly. It is my pleasure to tell you about the miraculous signs and wonders that the Most High God has performed for me. How great are his signs, how mighty his wonders. His kingdom is an eternal kingdom. His dominion endures from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at home in my palace, contented and prosperous. I had a dream that made me afraid. As I was lying in my bed, the images and visions that passed through my mind terrified me. So I commanded that all the wise men of Babylon be brought before me to interpret the dream for me. When the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and diviners came, I told them the dream, but they could not interpret it for me. Finally, Daniel came into my presence, and I told him the dream. He is called Belteshazzar, after the name of my God, and the spirit of the holy gods is in him. I said, Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no mystery is too difficult for you. Here is my dream, and interpret it for me. These are the visions that I saw while lying in my bed. I looked, and there before me stood a tree in the middle of the land. Its height was enormous. The tree grew large and strong, and its top touched the sky. It was visible to the ends of the earth. Its leaves were beautiful, its fruit abundant, and on it was food for all. Under it the beasts of the field found shelter, and the birds of the air lived in its branches. From it every creature was fed. In the visions I saw while lying on the bed, I looked, and there before me was a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven. He called in a loud voice, "Cut down the tree and trim off its branches. Strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from under it and the birds from under its branches. Let the stump and its roots, bound with iron and bronze, remain in the ground, in the grass of the field. Let it be drenched with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the animals among the plants of the earth. Let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let it be given the mind of an animal, till 7 times pass by for him. The decision is announced by the messengers. The holy ones declare the verdict, so that the living may know the Most High is sovereign over the kingdoms of men, gives them over to anyone he wishes, and sets them over the lowliest of men. This is the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had. Now, Belteshazzar, tell me what it means, for none of the wise men in my kingdom can interpret it for me, but you can, because the spirit of the holy gods is in you." Nebuchadnezzar is an interesting character, because with all of his interactions with God, he never chooses to become one of God's people. He never sees any wisdom in changing the way he is for this God that he recognizes as the Most High. And so far, that's happened a couple times in this book. And it's only going to happen more. Nebuchadnezzar has been placed in this position by God, Daniel tells him, that he has been made a king over other kings. He's been made what we would call a mighty emperor who rules over a massive territory. And that God is planning to humble him, to show him who is really in charge. And so Nebuchadnezzar has been put in this position. He's been given this dream. He knows now what will happen if his pride persists. And beside all of that, he still continues to be who he is, and nothing about his character changes. So in verse 28, we see this. All this happened to King Nebuchadnezzar 12 months later, as the king was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon, he said, "Is not this the royal Babylon, the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" And the words were still on his lips when a voice came from heaven. "This is what is decreed for you, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken from you. You will be driven away from people and live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like cattle. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge the Most High is sovereign over the kingdoms of men and gives them to anyone he wishes." Immediately, what had been said about Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from people and ate grass like cattle. His body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle and his nails like the claws of a bird. At the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At the same time that my sanity was restored, my honor and splendor were returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne and became even greater than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right, and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. Pride is the destroyer of great men. It's the enemy of kings and conquerors. The pride of the heart is a poison that can bring low the strong and kill the powerful and influential. The only source of power is not the might of a king or the strength of a warrior's arm, but the God who gives him his authority and appoints kings of men in the places where they are to be. As Nebuchadnezzar himself said in chapter 2 and verse 47, God is a Lord of kings. He is the one who gives authority, and he's the one who takes it away. So in us, in our humble positions in life, let's remember the same lesson that was taught to the great king Nebuchadnezzar. Whatever role we have, we can count on God to keep us there or to put us in another one when he has a job for us. Let's not become conceited or arrogant in our positions, but instead recognize that pride can bring us low, and instead look for humility and Christ's example of being the most humble and having a servant heart. If this lesson has been beneficial for you today, and you have not already responded to the gospel call of Christ, we offer this opportunity, as we always do, that you can come forward and respond as we stand and sing.
Unto Jesus it will save you, though your sins as crimson glow. If you give your heart to Jesus, he will make it white as snow. Come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come today. Come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come today. Come to Jesus, do not tarry, enter in at mercy's gate. Oh, delay not till the morrow, lest thy coming be too late. Come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come today. Come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come today. Come to Jesus, dying sinner, other Savior there is none. He will share with you his glory when your pilgrimage is done. Come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come to Jesus, come today. Come to Jesus. Dan, you want to do the announcements?
Yep. They don't have anything new. There is one thing. Your sister, how she,
My sister?
yes.
I think she's doing better, but Tammy told me that she talked with Terry yesterday or last night, and Terry taking another test, and it still showed that she was still positive for COVID. So it's been just about 5 days or so.
I knew there was something else in your finger and I couldn't
Yeah, it
remember
was right.
receiving
It
it.
was right there before Wednesday night service, so maybe Tuesday she messaged me and let me know. And then ended up the whole shop is shut down because Amy has it and another woman works there has it too. So.
Well, I'm not sure how much of this is she's sharing with people, but Jan and I ran into Susan Buck, and her family needs prayers right now, is what I'll say. And I'm not sure I get all the details right if I share it, but there's a reason why they weren't here this morning, and they need prayers.
This is about Lincoln?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's actually about Lincoln's mom. Wait, Lincoln is like the baby.
It's about her baby.
It's about her. The baby is fine, apparently.
Yeah,
But
Lincoln's
she's
having.
Lincoln had a baby, it's premature, but she's got
severe
Tuesday
infections. Yeah, she's, there's a bunch of
some kind of body